Raven Pass was unnaturally silent. Prince Lucien led Lyra, Rowan, and Kale through the forgotten mountain trail. The deeper they ventured, the heavier the air became. Rowan rested a hand on his sword. We've been followed since we entered the pass. Kale extended his mana into the forest. Several mana signatures. They're hiding. Lyra looked toward Lucien. Should we wait for reinforcements? Lucien shook his head. If Master Ewan is here, every moment matters. Far above the cliffs, a hidden scout watched the group before disappearing into the shadows. Deep beneath the mountain, a messenger knelt before a masked man. My lord, the prince has arrived. The man quietly closed the book before him. Separate him. Delay the imperial knights. But the prince must not be harmed. Soon, the four stood before an enormous stone gate covered in ancient dragon runes. The moment Lucien touched it, brilliant blue light spread across the stone. The mountain trembled. With a deafening roar, the gate slowly opened. Without hesitation, Lucien stepped inside. The others followed. Ancient torches suddenly ignited, revealing a forgotten corridor that had slept for centuries. Then, the ground exploded. Black chains burst from the walls as shadow-crowned warriors emerged from the darkness. They're separating us, Kale shouted. Lucien, Lyra cried. A wall of black mana erupted between them. Lucien swung his sword, but the barrier remained untouched. The voices of his friends faded into silence. Ahead, a heavy stone door slowly opened. Warm firelight spilled into the corridor. A lone figure stepped from the shadows. The masked man slowly walked toward Lucien, his golden eyes fixed on the bloodstain upon the prince's shoulder. You should have been more careful. How could you be so careless? He reached toward the wound. Lucien immediately caught his wrist. Don't touch me. For a brief moment, the masked man simply looked at him, almost confused. I was only checking your wound. Lucien slowly released his hand, but never lowered his guard. The stranger quietly walked to an old cabinet, removing a small box of bandages and medicine before placing it on the table. Sit. Lucien remained standing. Why do you care? The masked man looked at him as though the answer were obvious. Because you're hurt. Silence returned. The stranger studied Lucien for a long moment. You've grown. Lucien frowned. Who are you? The masked man gave no answer. Instead, he turned toward a large curtain hanging beside the fireplace. His movements became noticeably gentler. Before anything else, you should greet her first. He pulled the curtain aside. Behind it hung a beautiful portrait of a young woman with long golden hair and warm amber eyes. The stranger quietly looked at the portrait, not as a leader, but as someone remembering a precious friend. Lucien stared at the painting. Who is she? The masked man slowly turned toward him. Confusion crossed his face, then disappointment. You don't know her? Lucien shook his head. I've never seen her before. The stranger lowered his eyes. I see. So they never told you. After a long silence, he reached into his robes and removed an old bronze key. He gently placed it into Lucien's hand. Lucien looked down. The archive key? The masked man quietly shook his head. No, a key to the truth. Lucien looked back at him. Truth. The stranger nodded. Words without proof are meaningless. Go beneath the imperial throne. Only then will your questions have answers. Lucien tightened his grip around the key. Why are you telling me this? The masked man looked once more toward the portrait. His voice became quiet. Because someone entrusted you to me. Lucien immediately asked. Who? The masked man smiled faintly, but gave no answer. Only silence filled the chamber once again. Lucien tightened his grip around the bronze key. Before he could ask another question, boom, the ancient stone doors exploded inward. Blue mana surged through the chamber. Prince Aldrich stepped through the dust. The moment he saw Lucien, he immediately moved in front of him. Lucien, are you hurt? Lucien lowered his sword. Uncle, I'm all right. The masked man quietly watched them. You're late. His eyes turned toward the portrait one last time. With a gentle wave of his hand, the portrait dissolved into countless golden particles. Only an empty wall remained. Wait. Lucien stepped forward, but Aldrich was already moving. Blue mana erupted as his sword clashed against the masked man's blade. The chamber shook violently. Stone pillars cracked beneath the impact. The masked man calmly looked at Aldrich. Tell me, how many more people will you fail to protect this time? Aldrich's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? The masked man simply smiled. At that moment, a shadow-crowned messenger appeared beside him. "My lord, the retreat route is ready." The masked man nodded, then looked at Lucien one final time. "Keep the key safe. We'll meet again." Golden light gathered beneath his feet. "Stop!" Aldrich lunged forward, his sword cut through fading light. Too late. The masked man had already vanished. Moments later, Imperial Knights stormed into the chamber. Adrian entered first. Behind him came Rowan, Lyra, and Kale. Lyra rushed straight to Lucien. "Are you all right?" Lucien gave a small nod. "I'm fine." Only then did everyone finally breathe again. As they prepared to leave, Lucien quietly looked at the bronze key resting in his hand. The answers he sought were still waiting. The journey back to the Imperial capital was unusually quiet. Although the rescue mission had succeeded, the Shadow Crown had escaped. The victory felt incomplete. Lucien rode silently beside Lyra, Rowan, and Kale, hidden beneath his cloak. The bronze key felt heavier than ever. The mysterious portrait, the masked man, and the unanswered questions refused to leave his thoughts. By sunset, the towering walls of the Imperial Palace came into view. As the rescue party entered the palace courtyard, they found Emperor Cedric, the Empress, Prince Aldrich, and dozens of Imperial Knights already waiting. One glance at the Emperor's face was enough to tell them that he had been worried. Without raising his voice, he spoke. "Lucien, Lyra, Rowan, Kale, my office." No one argued. The four quietly followed behind him. The heavy doors of the Imperial office closed. Silence filled the room. The Emperor slowly looked at each of them before striking his desk. "What were you thinking?" No one answered. "You entered enemy territory without permission. You ignored protocol, and you risked your lives." His voice became quieter. "If Adrian hadn't reached you in time, I might have lost every one of you." The room remained silent. The Emperor turned toward Adrian. "You carried out your orders well. You have my thanks." Adrian bowed respectfully. "I only fulfilled my duty, Father." The Emperor nodded before looking back at the others. "I'm not angry because you disobeyed me. I'm angry because I almost lost you." For a brief moment, he wasn't speaking as an emperor, only as someone who genuinely cared. The Empress stepped forward with a gentle smile. "They're home safely. That is what matters." The Emperor let out a long sigh. "Very well." Dismissed. As everyone turned to leave, the Emperor spoke once more. "Lucien." Lucien stopped. "Yes, Your Majesty?" The Emperor looked at him for a long moment. "Are you truly unharmed?" Lucien nodded. "Yes." A faint smile appeared on the Emperor's face. "Good." Everyone continued toward the door. Then, Aldrich. Prince Aldrich stopped. "Stay." He quietly nodded. The office doors slowly closed behind him. Outside, the group walked through the palace corridor in silence. Finally, Rowan sighed. "Most academy students get into trouble with their professors." He looked at Lucien with a grin. "Some even get scolded by the headmaster. But you skipped all that and went straight to getting scolded by the Emperor." Lyra couldn't hide her smile. Even Kale looked away to suppress a laugh. Lucien sighed. "I'll try not to make it a habit." The corridor filled with quiet laughter. For the first time since Raven Pass, the tension began to lift. Several hours later, night had fallen over the Imperial Palace. Unable to sleep, Lucien wandered through the quiet corridors. The bronze key rested inside his pocket. Every answer seemed farther away than ever. As he turned a corner, the doors to the Emperor's office slowly opened. Prince Aldrich stepped outside. His face was pale. His eyes were slightly red. He looked exhausted. "Uncle." Aldrich stopped. For several long moments, he simply looked at Lucien. A gentle smile slowly appeared. He walked closer. Without thinking, he reached out and gently brushed a loose strand of Lucien's hair away from his face. The moment he realized what he had done, he quietly lowered his hand. Lucien looked at him in confusion. "Uncle." Aldrich smiled once more. "You should get some rest." Lucien nodded. "You too." Without another word, Aldrich walked away. Lucien watched him disappear into the darkness. Something had changed. He couldn't explain it. But somehow, his uncle no longer looked at him the same way. Lucien quietly placed a hand over the bronze key. Whatever truth it protected, his journey toward it had only just begun. 3 days had passed since the Raven Pass mission. The Imperial Academy had returned to its usual routine, but Lucien's mind had not. Hidden beneath his uniform, the bronze key remained as heavy as the questions surrounding it. The masked man, the vanished portrait, and the words, "You should greet her first," lingered in his thoughts. Morning training ended with Rowan dropping onto the grass in exhaustion. "I swear, academy training is harder than Raven Pass." Kale adjusted his glasses. "That's because Raven Pass didn't assign homework." The group laughed, and even Lyra smiled. For a brief moment, everything felt normal again. The academy bell echoed across the campus, calling every first-year student to the lecture hall. Standing before the class, Headmaster Orion announced that a student who had missed the previous year due to a carriage accident would finally be joining them. The classroom doors opened. A young noblewoman with long chestnut-brown hair and sapphire blue. I stepped inside, wearing the emerald green academy uniform of House Ulrich embroidered with bronze. She bowed gracefully. "My name is Lady Serena Ulrich, but my friends call me Sarah." As she raised her head, her eyes met Lucien's. Lucien blinked before smiling. "Sarah?" Whispers spread throughout the classroom. Rowan stared between them. "Wait, you two know each other." Sarah laughed. "We grew up together." She turned toward Lucien. "You still owe me a rematch." Lucien sighed. "You still remember that?" "Of course. You cheated." "I did not." "You absolutely did." The classroom burst into laughter. Headmaster Orion smiled before speaking. "Lady Serena, your seat is beside Prince Lucien." She walked over and sat beside him. "Looks like we're classmates again." Lucien smiled. "Looks that way." Only a few seats away, Lyra quietly watched them. She had never seen Lucien smile so freely before. A strange feeling settled in her chest. She didn't know what it was, only that she couldn't ignore it. During the afternoon break, Rowan eagerly introduced himself to Sarah. Within minutes, the two were laughing together, while Kale simply sighed, already expecting Rowan to make another friend. Watching the group, Lucien felt something he hadn't experienced since Raven Pass. Peace. The weekend arrived, and an elegant carriage bearing the emerald and bronze crest of House Ulrich waited outside the Imperial Academy. A servant respectfully informed Lady Serena that her father wished for her to return home. Before boarding, she turned toward Lucien with a warm smile. "Father would be happy if you came with us." Rowan immediately stepped forward. "Well, I suddenly feel invited too." Serena laughed. "Then come along." Kale remained at the academy, while Lyra silently watched the carriage disappear beyond the academy gates. House Ulrich welcomed them with warmth rather than formality. Standing before the manor, Duke Ulrich greeted Lucien with a rare smile. "Prince Lucien, you've grown." Lucien bowed politely. "It's an honor to see you again, Your Grace." The Duke chuckled. "When did you become so formal? You once stole apples from my orchard." Rowan stared at Lucien in disbelief. "You did what?" Serena crossed her arms. "He also fell out of the tree." Laughter echoed through the courtyard as Lucien rubbed the back of his neck in embarrassment. Dinner passed peacefully. Rowan somehow became the center of attention with exaggerated stories from academy life, even making Duke Ulrich laugh. For a short while, Lucien almost forgot about Raven Pass. Later that night, unable to ignore the thoughts lingering in his mind, Lucien quietly left his room. He remembered this estate. Months ago, during the Shadow Crown investigation, he had followed a hooded figure through the back entrance. Guided by memory, Lucien returned to the same hidden room. It was spotless. The emblem was gone. The documents had vanished. Only faint repair marks remained where the symbol had once been carved into the stone. Someone erased it. Footsteps echoed through the corridor. Lucien immediately hid behind a stone pillar. Moments later, Duke Ulrich entered the chamber alone. A concealed passage slowly opened, and a hooded figure stepped inside. Lucien strained to listen. Only fragments reached him. The prince. Too early. The throne. The conversation ended as quickly as it had begun. The hooded figure disappeared through the hidden passage, and Duke Ulrich quietly extinguished the lantern before leaving. Only after silence returned did Lucien step back into the chamber. The investigation he thought had ended months ago had only grown deeper, and for the first time, Lucien became certain that House Ulrich still held secrets connected to the Shadow Crown. Several days passed after Lucien's visit to House Ulrich, yet the secret meeting beneath the estate refused to leave his mind. The hooded figure, Duke Ulrich, and the words he had overheard all pointed toward a truth hidden somewhere within the empire. More than ever, Lucien believed the bronze key was connected to it. Determined to find answers, he threw himself into training before sunrise. Alone on the practice field, every swing of his sword was sharper than the last. When training finally ended, Lyra quietly approached carrying a towel and a flask of water. "You've been training too hard." Lucien smiled as he accepted them. "Thank you." As he wiped the sweat from his face, Lyra noticed the scar on his shoulder left by Raven Pass. Without thinking, she gently reached toward it. "Does it still hurt?" Lucien looked at her in surprise. "Not anymore." Realizing how close she was, Lyra quickly stepped back, her cheeks turning red. Before the silence could grow awkward, Rowan's voice echoed across the field. "Should I come back later?" Everyone laughed, and even Lucien couldn't hide a smile. Later that day, Lucien gathered with Lyra, Rowan, Kale, and Sarah inside the Academy library. Ancient history books covered the table as they searched for anything related to dragons or the Empire's earliest years. Yet every record ended the same way. Entire pages had been removed, as though someone had deliberately erased part of history. That discovery led Lucien to the Imperial archives. For hours he searched through forgotten records until the bronze key hidden beneath his uniform suddenly became warm. A faint golden light began, guiding him through abandoned corridors to an ancient stone wall at the deepest part of the archives. As Lucien raised the key, glowing dragon runes spread across the wall, revealing a hidden keyhole. At last, he had found what the key was meant to unlock. Just as he reached forward, a calm voice broke the silence. "Some doors are sealed for a reason." Lucien turned. Lord Cassian Voss stood quietly behind him, his emerald eyes fixed upon the glowing bronze key. For the first time, Lucien wondered how much Lord Cassian truly knew.